Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for Cherry Becker's 2022 Government and Public Sector two-day virtual conference. If you are just now tuning in, my name is Madeline Robbins, and I'm our technical producer with Cherry Beckert. It's great to see so many of you signed in again today. Many of you have been with us all morning, and some have returned for our second day. We've had a variety of presentations over the last couple of days. And a reminder, you are eligible for 1 hour of CPE for each of those sessions. Here's some quick items to note before we get started. To receive CPE, you must answer at least 3 polling questions and attend for the full 50 minutes. CPE certificates will be issued via email within 10 days. If you have not received yours after 10 days, please email cbhlearning@cbh.com. A recorded version of this webinar will also be available in about a week. Along with the slides, it'll be sent via email and posted to our website. Now, if you have any questions during the webinar, please type those into the Q&A box. We will be monitoring it throughout, and we'll answer any questions we do have time for. Just a quick note, we will be sharing a short survey at the conclusion of the webinar. We value your feedback. We do this presentation almost every year, and we value what tips and tricks you give us for next time. With that, I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker for today, Beth Wood, CPA and North Carolina State Auditor, who will provide an update on current issues relevant to local government auditors and finance officials, with some specific to the state of North Carolina. Please, Beth, take it away.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to be a part of this conference. I have a lot of respect for Cherry Beckert and the work that they do, and so appreciative of the firm that they are, and for putting on this local government conference. This is critical, I think, given I serve on the Local Government Commission, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I get to see a lot of audit reports for local government, cities and counties particularly, and it is concerning the issues that are coming up. And certainly I appreciate Cherry Beckert and the Local Government Commission and everything that everybody's doing to make sure that our local governments are fiscally sound. So with that, I'm going to talk about the course objectives. What I'd like to accomplish in this next hour is looking at the General Statute 159. This is called the Local Government Finance. Well, it's actually the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. This is the general statute that drives what local governments should be doing, and it is law. It's a general statute. I understand the application of some critical components within GS.159 along the way, things that, I mean, again, the law is huge. There's a lot there, but there's some critical components, I think, that local governments should be concentrating on, and I'm not sure that we are putting the right amount of emphasis on it. And then I want to discuss a proposed compliance supplement that may be showing up in your audit, or if you're an auditor, this will be a requirement of the Local Government Commission possibly in the future. And remember, I'm saying possibly. It's something that commission members are talking about and working on. And then I want to discuss some current local government investigative cases. I can't tell you how much the numbers have increased. I have an investigative unit in my office, in my agency, and we have about 35 local governments with allegations of numerous missing money, local government officials not behaving appropriately, misappropriating the credit card, misappropriating assets, just a lot of allegations. And again, I have about 35 sitting in my queue right now that we have triaged and believe that they are a viable allegation and that will result in some kind of substantiation of some problems. So with that, I want to first lead off. I want to kind of go back in reverse of what the objectives showed. I want to first talk about local governments in trouble. I want to talk about, again, sort of what the troubles are. And these are local governments that have come to our agency, been brought to our agency through our investigative hotline or a phone call, an email. And then we have investigated and the problems that we have found. So we talk about local governments in trouble, and then I want to work through the audit that every local government is required to have annually, and where this GS.159 and these problems sort of come together in your audit report. And then what I believe is not exactly happening like it should, and that will lead us into the why of the compliance supplement and what that will accomplish. So the first case I want to talk about, it's a town, has a population of 12,000 plus, so not small, has a city council and a mayor. They have a city manager, a finance officer, an HR director, and an accounting technician. The services that they offer their citizens are water, sewer, electricity, garbage pickup, and recreation. So when we went in and performed our investigation, this is what we found. The $430,000 was used for one person's personal use. This was over a 3-year period. We found $36,000 in cash missing from the revenue department, $102,000 in questionable credit card use, $9,900 paid to an economic developer. It was an overpayment, and misuse of town vehicles, and then and just a non-existent vehicle inventory. I'll back up just a little bit and talk about these. So the $430,000 that we found, this was not the city manager. This was not the finance director. This was an accounting technician that took $430,000 over a 3-year period. And let me show you just how egregious or easy to find, whichever you want to go. The $430,000 were done in 3 different ways. There were either checks made out to her personally. It was a check made out to the nursing home where her husband was, or there were checks that were made out to her credit union. And then all these checks with sort of a reason for what they were written for were never recorded into the accounting system of, so you got these checks that are written, checks are cashed by the bank, but the transaction never hit the accounting system. And then we had $36,000 missing from the revenue department. We stepped back and looked at the cash handling procedures and found that when the cash clerks, the cash handlers, collection clerks were collecting money, they were never tying, and when they collected money, there was an automatic receipt written to whoever they took money from. But there was never a reconciliation between the receipts and what was collected and what was deposited in the bank. So you've got checks, you've got credit cards, and you've got cash. But the cash never, when we went back and we looked at, this is what was collected in the course of a day, and then we compared it to what actually got deposited, there was a lot of times cash missing. And then $102,000 in questionable credit card use. What we found was a couple things. Number one, in a lot of cases, there was no receipt that accompanied the expenditure. But more importantly than that, and people think, well, if I got a receipt, we're good. No, there has to be a budgeted reason that you spent that credit card transaction. And so we're looking for not only the receipt, but on the receipt, what was the documented business purpose for that government, that local government? And then in the case of the $9,900 overpaid to economic development, this economic developer received a $100 stipend every month for his cell phone. In 1 month, the zero, somebody got zero happy, and he got paid $10,000. And there was no reconciliation between what did we budget for salaries that month, what should it have been? And people said, well, oh, what about overtime? Well, I can go back and reconcile what were salaries, what was overtime against what we did pay. And so again, and nobody caught this. Nobody caught this until we came in and did this investigation. The misuse of town vehicles, you got these town vehicles and people drive them. And there's no logging of the mileage and who's using it for what and who's going where with the car. When we went back and looked at the gas cards that went with these vehicles, we found that the economic developer was driving his car to South Carolina, Dillon, South Carolina, multiple times. And when asked what was in Dillon, South Carolina, he said, well, I was looking at the city that's our biggest competitor. We're like, competitor for what? So there was no reason that this car was being driven to South Carolina, except we learned that he had family there. I think his wife and children were in Dillon, South Carolina. So you can just kind of put two and two together there. And then for the vehicle inventory, there were several sources for the vehicles. And what we found is that the gas card company had one list, and theirs was like 130. And then you have DMV that had a different number, and then you have the auditor with a different number. And so bottom line is, and then you have the town who believes they've got a certain number. And so again, you've got 4 different sources and everybody's got a different number for what the vehicle inventory is. There were allegations that when you retire from that town, you got a vehicle. And so, you know, it's a great job if you can get it, great work if you can get it. But anyway, so again, all these findings, and think about what you think about it, money's being misspent personally, cash missing from utility collections, questionable credit card use. And then we're going to walk this into what the expectations of GS.159, the general statute, which is the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. So looking at the issues of what went wrong and what happened, there was no, obviously, segregation of duties. So I've got this accounting technician who can write the checks, had complete control of the bank account. Even nobody could get into the bank account online, but this accounting tech. Your finance director couldn't, your town manager could not. They had complete control of the checkbook. They were in complete control, and it was their job to do the bank reconciliations, and it was their job to oppose to the accounting system. So again, thinking about there's no segregation of duties, what went on here, and I would say that my investigators found $430,000 missing. The town went further because, as far as I'm concerned, we got enough. You know, that's enough that I can finish my report. But the town went on to look for more, and the number had gotten up to $600,000, and yet they didn't finish all the years that she worked there. So the number is much higher than the 40,000 that I found. Other problems here, issues, is oversight. The alderman of the town manager, there was a finance officer. Your finance officer, finance director was not overseeing the cash collections. There's no management review of financial transactions. There were no budget to actual reports, and no audits were being done for 3 years in a row. So the oversight, and again, we're getting GS.159 and what that law requires of the alderman and the finance director, and as far as having audits done, you will see that this town was sorely not in compliance with the Budget and Fiscal Control Act. So our first polling question, coming here pretty quickly. One of the functions of the Local Government Commission is A, performing investigations of local governments, B, providing accounting services for local governments, C, taking over the financial operations of local governments, or D, finding qualified auditors for local governments. We'll give you just a second. Maddie, I'm just checking to see if I have any questions at this time. I know we're not very far into this, but any questions?
It's not too far in just yet, but this is a good time to remind you guys, if you do have questions for Beth during the presentation, type those into that Q&A window.
The answer is C. Interestingly enough, the Local Government Commission is not authorized to perform investigations of local governments. That's my job. So that's why these investigations that I'll be talking about today are actual investigations that I have been performing and have been performing for a number of years now. They are, if a local government gets into financial trouble and they are about to go bankrupt or can't pay their loans to the state or federal government, this local government commission can walk in the door, take over the financial operations, the checkbook, the bank reconciliations, writing the checks, paying the bills, making financial decisions, authorizing that this is within the budget or not within the budget, that the town can afford this or not. This is one of the functions of the local government commission is IMC. They can take over the financial operations of a local government. They are not going to be able to find you a qualified auditor. They can make suggestions in threes. They can give you a list of those that are qualified or have met their requirements, but they can't really pick one for you. And then they do not provide accounting services. The local government commission can be the help desk, can tell you how to do things, how to account for things, and be like a help desk. But again, they cannot provide the accounting services for you, not unless they walk in and take you over, and that is not a good thing when they do that. Okay. Our second case, we have another town, again, not very small, 12,000 population. They have a city council and a mayor. They also have a city manager who is the finance officer and the HR director all in one. They had a town clerk and utility billing clerks, and then they did offer utilities, water, sewer, electricity, garbage, and recycling to their citizens. The findings in that investigation, there were no policies and procedures for cash collection. So again, you've got people who are collecting cash. They're responsible for the whole, from cradle to grave. There's no reconciliation. Here's what's in your cash drawer today. And at the end of the day, and this is what you should have, this is what you started out with in the morning, here's what you've taken in, this is what you made change for, and here's how much you should have at the end of the day. They also, the city manager slash finance director made unauthorized loans to employees and reimbursed for some tuition costs that were never budgeted for, never anybody, and they had no authorization to do this. Assets were not safeguarded. This finance officer slash town manager reimbursed health insurance to a former employee without proper documentation. And then again, same old story, questionable credit card payments. So in this case, and I'll go back to here, I want to talk about this just for a second. Assets not being safeguarded. This is another theme, if you will, going through our local governments. In this case, the fuel card company had an inventory of 39 vehicles. The insurance company had an inventory of 32. DMV had on record 40, and the auditors for this local government said they had 42. So again, nobody really taking care of and guarding these vehicles. And then of course, again, nobody's documenting mileage. You've got a HR director who is a town manager, is driving the town car back and forth to home. This is a W-2 item. This is an added benefit to an employee that should be on their W-2 every year, and it was not. So again, you've got people in power, people in these managerial positions, and not appropriately doing their job. The reimbursement for health insurance, there was a former town manager, he retired. He was not able to be on the health insurance of the town, but had a deal that they would reimburse him for any out-of-pocket expenses he had. He showed them this particular invoice from 2016. They paid him every year from 2016 up through 2021 for the same invoice. It had no details on it. It didn't show them anything that would suffice as appropriate documentation. And in the end, they overpaid him $2,198. And again, as I said, we got these questionable credit card purchases. Some had receipts. Many of them did not have any viable business purpose listed. So what we found in this situation, and accounting transactions were not caught up. The bank reconciliations had not been done. Their situation was if somebody paid for a utility bill with a credit card, that money went into a separate bank account, and then somebody had to figure out whose account it was and then go into their utility system and apply the payment. And then they had to move the money from the credit card bank account over to the general centralized deposit bank account. And it was a nightmare. And these transactions and these issues were at least 3 years behind. When we went in there in an investigative manner, looking at, we were trying to get the books caught up so that, we could investigate. And what we found is that the town manager / finance director, there were no, the competencies, the things that GS.159, General Statute 159 says a finance officer must be able to do to sit in that seat. This person could not do them. Town clerk, we're trying to get her to, and it was her job, to reconcile this credit card bank account that had over $300,000 in it and take the money out of there and apply it to whoever paid their utility bill and then put it in the central depository, and absolutely just could not do this. And then you have the oversight. You have the city council. Where are they in all this? How are they letting no audit being done for years, bank reconciliations not being done? What are they working off of? So when I ask the question, what does the city council get every month that helps them understand what's going on, because the buck stops with them? And so what is the city council looking at? And what they were being given was a piece of paper with 5 generalized topic accounts and some dollars. So like had credit card, $300,000. They had like general, and not even general fund, just general with, $500,000. And so that was it. That's all the city council got every month for years. And so when I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, they got $300,000 in credit card expenditures that haven't been paid. Well, really, that was the bank money sitting in the bank. So again, where is the city council in all this? And believe me, GS.159 does not let them or the finance officer or anybody off the hook for all these things that are going on. And again, GS.159, and we'll see that a little later, is really written so that if followed, the towns will have better assurance that they, or counties, that they will be fiscally sound. So again, keep note of the things I'm talking about, what we found in our investigations, what the problems were, and people want to hone in on who took that money, who stole that money, who did this bad thing, when in reality, the problem's much bigger than that. The issues are much bigger than that. And we don't need to wait until hundreds of thousands of dollars are missing or a local government's about to go bankrupt before anybody sits up and takes notice and does something about the issues. We also found in this case number 2 in this town that there were no cash handling procedures. There's no checking the cash drawer out. There's no reconciliation of the receipts that you wrote back to what you handed over for deposit. There's no procedures around credit card usage, checking it out, what you need to turn back in. And there were never, ever any allowance for employee loans or reimbursements. There were no policies or procedures around that yet. The town manager just did it, made loans to employees, reimbursed somebody in the rec department about over $2,000 for classes. There's nothing in the budget that allows for either one of these. And so again, be thinking about who did it. And again, stepping back, competencies, in the accounting and posting and accounting transactions, and the policies and procedures that were surrounding this town, and being able to enforce those. And then vehicle and inventory use, again, being able to keep up with all of the vehicles that you own as a town, and then making sure that nobody's abusing the use, because the wear and the tear on these vehicles runs up their value as you move into, number one, how long are they going to last, or if you need to trade it in. And then the last case I want to talk about here real quickly, this is a much smaller town. They have a mayor and a board of commissioners, that a town clerk, a part-time assistant town clerk, a part-time administrative assistant, they offer law enforcement and public works to their citizens. What we found is that the town clerk abused her position, in that she issued, again, unauthorized loans to town employees and herself. She received $4,410 in unallowed vacation pay. She commingled her personal funds with the town's. So when she got paid, her bank supposedly was in Virginia, and she couldn't get to that bank, so she would deposit her checks in the town's checking account. And then when we would see that checks were written back out to herself, they were larger than what she put in. She did not obtain the required secondary signature on all checks, and when she did get them, the other signature was her mom, who was on the board of commissioners. And then we had a commissioner who purchased town equipment for approximately $2,700 below fair market value. The town just, he said, I'll take it off your hands, $2,700. Nobody really looked to see what they could get out of it to get the best use. Again, a small town, every penny, every dollar counts, and yet people are just not being fiscally responsible. City council, lack of oversight for sure on these loans being made and these checks being written, and overtime, vacation time being given that shouldn't have been, and there should have been a defined authority of their town manager and finance authority. So we have another polling question. Local governments with resource problems are exempt from meeting the requirements of GS.159, the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. True or false? So local governments having resource problems are exempt from meeting the requirements of GS.159, Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. True or false? I got a couple of questions here. First one is, are there statistics on the number of local governments that do not have an adequate system of internal controls? It would seem that North Carolina could do this simply via a simple survey. We tried that. The state auditor's office tried that, trying to get a simple survey to see if their internal controls and people are in compliance with GS.159. And we just couldn't get the information. The audits and the proposed compliance supplement will help us determine that moving forward. Will we get more detailed information on the cases later? I will tell you that the cases I'm talking about are on our website. You just go into the state auditor's website and look at audit and audit types, and then move down into investigations, and you'll be able to see every one of these on our website. And then, not related to this course, but I have coworkers that want me to ask if Beth will be running for re-election in 2024. Wow, we will see.
I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share our results for this one.
So local governments with resource problems are exempt from meeting GS.159. True or false? That answer is false. When you are incorporated and you have local elected officials, you are ensuring that you're taking on the responsibilities that you can meet. So again, just the fact that you're having resource problems does not exempt you from meeting the requirements of GS.159. And glad to see that most people got that right, that is false. You are not exempt even if you're having resource problems. So now I want to talk about the General Statute 159. This is a law. It's the Local Government Finance. It is the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. And we'll talk about Local Government Commission just a little bit. So the Budget and Fiscal Control Act, GS.159, it establishes the existence of the Local Government Commission. And I would tell you, we are only one, if at most two states across the nation with a Local Government Commission. And because we have this commission in place, there is a consistency among our local governments, and there is little to no that have gone bankrupt because Local Government Commission has kept a watch on all this, and they've provided the information, the rules, the procedures that, if followed, these local governments will be fiscally sound. There are many that are jealous that the state of North Carolina has a Local Government Commission. In this GS.159, this provides ground rules in 3 different areas: budgeting, capital reserves, and fiscal control. Now, this proposed compliance supplement, and I'll talk more about what a compliance supplement is, really centers around the budgeting process and the fiscal control process. Again, as I said, GS.159 actually establishes Local Government Commission, the staff as well as commission. So there are, and I'm a part of the commission, there's a Secretary of State, the Treasurer is the chairman of the Local Government Commission. We have some city and county commissioners, former commissioners that serve on the Local Government Commission, as well as the Department of Revenue head. And so again, there is a commission, and we have a staff that helps us and helps you. And certainly their main objective is the oversight of local governments for their financial health. And again, when they get into a local government gets into trouble and they're about to go bankrupt, or they're not going to be able to make their loan payments back to the state or federal government, the Local Government Commission staff, Local Government Commission can take over the financial runnings of that local government, be the finance officer, be the check writer. If people want to spend money at that local government and the budget doesn't allow it, the Local Government Commission says no. If they want to make raises and the local government can't afford it, the Local Government Commission can say no once they take over. And then, of course, as a commission, we approve local governments to go to the bond market to sell bonds. So part 1 of the budget of the Fiscal Control Act is about the budget. It provides a legal framework for a budget adoption, and I want to talk about that in a little more detail about what that looks like, that I believe is not being met for the most part across many of our local governments. And it also provides a budget calendar to help units adopt their budgets, a well-developed budget, by June 30. The second part, I'm not really going to deal in that at all, has to do with capital reserve funds, but it's the ability and it's some rules around being able to set money aside, like if you wanted to pay your bonds, make your bond payment, but to be able to set money in reserve for other things. Part 1, and then the third part that I'm going to be talking about is the fiscal control part of all this, and that gets into your finance officer, what your accounting system should be able to do, and then responsibilities of your finance officer, your budget officer, and your accounting system. So in the first part, and I've cited GS.159 and the applicable parts, this centers around your annual balanced budget ordinance. It speaks to the fact that you must adopt a balanced budget. And then it talks about your budget officer, budget requests and how they should be made, preparation and submission of your budget, filing and publication, the budget ordinance, what that should look like, and then any budget amendments. Let me just check on something here and see where I want to go with this. Yeah. So again, obviously the budget has to be balanced. The thing that I would say here is that there's some conversation about appropriating fund balance. Many commissioners, council members, get a balanced budget. And what they don't pay enough attention to is the fact that your fund balance from prior years building up has been appropriated. You can't appropriate but just so much, according to the law, GS.159. So that's in there. But the other piece of it is you can't keep appropriating and funding the operations of your local government through using what you've got in savings fund balance, or you're going to eventually run out. It talks about who the budget officer can be and should be. In the budget request and the preparation and submission of the budget, this really gets into where I think a lot of local governments might be missing, and it speaks to every agency or division within your local government. There should be submissions of, this is what I spent last year. There should be a submission of, this is what I think my budget expenditures and revenues are going to be for this year, and then your request for the next year. And it should be built around and documented what your true needs are. I went to a small town and had a conversation with them about their budgeting process, and they said, yeah, we brought every department in and had them present their budget. And I said, well, when your police department came in, I said, did you ask them how many people you have, how many shifts you're running, how many people do you need to run the shifts that you're running, and come at it from that perspective. You got people out reading meters, water meters. How many meters do you have? How long does it take to read one? How many people do you have reading them? How many man hours do you have given the staff that you've got? And do you have enough? Do you have too many? Are you looking at it from that perspective? And that's where GS.159 is looking for. It's also speaking to the city council members and commissioners. How involved are they in to what really went into the budget before they adopt and vote on a budget? So these are all things that are in GS.159 that I'm not sure we're really looking at like we should as auditors. And so again, this compliance supplement hopefully will take care of some of the things that, if done well, if done better, we wouldn't have local governments that are in fiscal trouble, or that it would make the fiscal soundness of our local governments even better. The fiscal control is part 3 of the GS.159. It mandates a pre-audit process for spending. Again, what is that pre-audit process? You're gonna, go spend this money. Is it in your budget? Do you have money in the bank to pay for this? So there are requirements in GS.159 around this. It spells out the core responsibilities of a unit's finance officer. And just to give you some examples, it says that the finance officer will be able to keep the books in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It says that they will disperse all funds in strict compliance with this budget, with the budget ordinance. It says that they will prepare and file with the board a statement of financial condition as often as the board requires it, and in form, if you will, that the council members or the commissioners can understand the true financial condition of their local government. They will receive and deposit all cash collections on a daily basis. So again, it's really spelling out the responsibilities. What can this finance officer do? And in one of the investigations that we did, we found that the finance officer, the town manager who was functioning as a finance officer, was not equipped, did not have the competencies. So you, the auditor, could write recommendations all day long, but they didn't know how to implement them because they didn't have the competencies to perform that position. So I am looking for seeing findings or seeing some auditors look at this, because in your smaller organizations, and not necessarily in the smaller ones, I've seen this in the big ones too, you got people in place who really, really don't understand governmental accounting. and how to post and account for transactions. Then the law gets into the requirements of a unit's accounting system, and this is not all inclusive, but it says that the accounting system will be designed to show in detail assets, liabilities, equities, revenues, and expenditures. It also says that your accounting system will be able to show appropriations and estimated revenues. The law says that your accounting system will be set up in funds, and it lays out the types of funds that, if applicable, should be, your system should be set up that way. And then last but not least, the law says that every local government must have an annual audit. So again, I just kind of went through all of these. The law speaks to facsimile signatures. If you've got a signature stamp, or if you've got a signature machine, there's rules around how those should be guarded, how they should be taken care of. Time for another polling question. Which of the following is not a requirement of GS.159? Obtaining an annual audit, criteria for a local government's accounting system, the duties of the city county manager, or the duties of a local government finance officer or director. Which of the following is not a requirement of GS.159, or you won't find the requirements listed? The question was, did those local governments sue these people who committed fraud? We made recommendations in our investigations to go collect the money back, but anywhere that, and we're not allowed to call something fraud. You know, we know it is when somebody takes money and takes the town's money and writes them a personal check. We know that is, but I can't call it that because, you know, got to have judge and jury. But what we do on where we're pretty sure that fraud has been committed or law has been broken, we refer this to the appropriate law enforcement agency. That will be the SBI, the FBI, or the district attorney, depending on who's the most, which one it makes the most sense. So when you go read these investigative reports, you will see that in cases we have referred these to legal authorities. In cases where people drove a car that they should have had it show up on their W-2, or somebody had $47,704 worth of utility bills written off, no law was broken, but, or it wasn't before January 1 of 2022, but no, at that time, no law was broken. So we referred that to the Department of Revenue and the IRS, because they've gotten a financial benefit that should have been reported on their tax return, and they did not. So we are recommending that they go seek their money, but again, we are referring it to the appropriate legal authorities. Maddie, are you there?
I am. We just went ahead and shared the poll results for this one.
Okay, so the answer to that question is number 3. The duties of a city or county manager are not really laid out. They are not laid out in GS.159. They are the criteria for what a government's accounting system should do is in GS.159. The duties of what a local government finance officer, finance director are in, and then the fact that you have to obtain an annual audit are all in GS.159. So GS.159 and the annual audit, talk about that real quickly. In your annual audit, you're getting a financial statement, and the objective is, you're getting a financial statement audit, and the objective is to render an opinion that all the numbers in this financial statement are significantly fair and accurate. And so people that are going to look at this, they can make decisions about the financial health of this local government, like when you want to go to the bond market and borrow money. That's one of the things that local government commission will look at. Can you even afford it? So a part of that, that's what your annual audit is about. But also another part of that is we report on internal controls. We don't give an opinion, but we do note where there are weaknesses in internal controls. What a lot of people may not be aware of is that we are required, whether you're getting a yellow book audit or you're getting an audit under AICPA standards, doesn't matter. We're required to identify any law or contract, any law or regulation. Non-compliance would mean it could have a direct and material effect on the financial statements. We are supposed to identify that law and then audit for compliance with that law. And so that GS.159, I mean, think about it. If you don't have an accounting system that can do all the things that the law says, then you could have a significant and material error in your financial statements and your transactions. If you have a finance officer who can't perform the duties, doesn't understand governmental accounting, doesn't understand how to post transactions, doesn't understand internal controls, doesn't know how to watch over money. If you have a finance director who cannot fulfill those duties laid out, then this law is applicable and non-compliance could have a direct and material effect on your financial statements. If your budgeting process is such that the city council or the commissioners don't have really a clue what they're voting on, and they're passing a budget that constantly dips into the fund balance and keeps appropriating that, or they are budgeting for things that the city and the county cannot afford, again, that's non-compliance. The city and county commissioners and board members need to be able to see on a month-to-month basis the financial operations of their city or county, budget to actual. And if they're not getting that in a compliance with GS.159, it could have a direct and material effect on their financial statements. So GS.159, I'm not sure, is being looked at from that perspective, from the financial audit perspective. So we are proposing a compliance supplement. It's being proposed because we want consistency across all state, all local governments, that the things that are in GS.159 that ensure financial soundness are being looked at by our external auditors on at least an annual basis. The contents will be around the kinds of things that I talked about today, the things that, if not done, could have a direct and material effect on your financials. Effective date, where I'm looking, I'm hoping we'll get to is to put this compliance supplement out and sort of like a dry run for a year. Here's the kinds of things that the auditor is going to be looking at in the future, and then make it a formal part of the financial statement audit moving forward. But again, what it'll have are the very kinds of things I've talked about today that, if not done, could have a direct and material effect on your financials. And I would tell you, there's a lot of legislators who are interested in, why are these towns getting in financial trouble? Who's asleep at the wheel? Why does the local government commission now running 7 local governments? Is the most they've ever run in their history. I believe they may have just gotten rid of one, but for sure at one time within the last year, they've run 7, the most they've ever run. And if we have another one to get in trouble, I'm not sure we've got the resources to go run that town. So again, there's a lot of legislative interest in, why aren't these local governments, why are they failing? Why are they getting into financial trouble? The Local Government Commission has a list of units that have some financial issues with them. At one point, it was over 100. So again, this compliance supplement hopefully will bring to light some of the things that should be done, that's in the law, that's required to be done, but probably not being, to catch things much sooner than before a local government commission gets into dire straits financially. And you think about the fact that, you know, elections are held at some places every 2 years, some every 4, for commissioners or council members. And so you've got them coming and going and coming and going, and there needs to be some stability around what these local governments should be doing. And this compliance supplement to point out the things that are not being done is a good tool to do that. Polling question. So Cities and municipalities who do not fulfill their responsibilities to their citizens could have their charter suspended or revoked. True or false? I don't see that I have any more questions.
And we have our results in for this poll. And then I'm also going to invite Denise to join us as well.
Thank you. So the answer is true, and glad to see everybody got that one, because that is that and withholding sales tax revenues are a couple of things. Now, hear me when I say this. There are a couple of things that are on the plate of local governments who are not fulfilling their responsibilities to their citizens. Again, the LGC cannot continue to run cities or counties, and it is up to the local governments to handle their responsibilities themselves. So there are a couple of things on the table, and one of them, in fact, there's just been a town that's lost their charter. When you lose your charter, it means you can no longer offer services like water, sewer, electricity, garbage, and be able and police protection, and be able to collect from the citizens to support that. So again, just kind of knowing what's headed out there, that's what this presentation today was, to let's work together, figure out what we got to do. The LGC is a ton of information and then again, GS.159 is not that hard to read about what the responsibilities are and what they're not. And so again, hopefully we can get the local governments in the state of North Carolina all on track of where they should be to support its citizens in every one of them.
Thank you for a wonderful session, Beth, and what a great way to end our conference. I want to thank everyone for joining us. If you have any additional questions regarding any of the conference sessions, please reach out to us at any time. We really value your feedback and ask that you take part in a short survey, which is now posted in the meeting chat. Please note that we will be sending out copies of the presentations as linked PDFs at the beginning of next week via email. And the following week, so within 2 weeks of this conference, we will also send out all recordings from these sessions along with CPE certificates. If you have not received either of the 2 emails after 10 days, please email cbhlearning@cbh.com. Thank you again for joining us for our 2022 Virtual Government Conference. We hope you will join us again next year. Have a great rest of the week.